Steve, is we're going to talk a little bit more about Montrelli racing engines, and then I want to get into what you started the program with and what Schumacher has done in sending the cars and rigs offshore, and give me a little information on that. But let's talk about Montrelli racing engines.
All right. Well, like I say, what I did is I started it out at my home in my garage, and I just started I actually went to the piston company, and I wanted to make a piston, and I wanted to do something different. In those days, we ran no buttons in the pistons. It's a button that goes in the piston that keeps the piston away from the wall, so it doesn't hurt the piston. And
so what you're saying is you put a button in the skirt of the piston where it rubs against the cylinder wall.
Right. There was like 5 of them on each side, 4 or 5 of them on each side. And we had done that when I did the Mickey Thompson thing with the Boss 429 Ford. I had probably 25 of them in each piston, and they didn't work worth a darn.
What kind of material did you use, Steve?
I'm trying to think of the name of it as we're talking.
Is it like a Teflon or brass?
It's a Teflon.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Okay. So anyways, after the Teflon, it didn't work, it just didn't work good, and I kept trying to figure out if there was something else we could put in them to make it better. And this is where I kind of came out with it was an Arius piston, but what I did is I had a bronze bushing made, bronze button made,
sure.
And I had serrations on it in 2 different sizes, so when you pressed it into the piston, it couldn't go nowhere, couldn't rotate.
Oh, I see.
Then we would turn it. Well, this was just absolutely the best thing you could, it was better than a nice hamburger.
Better than butter on popcorn,
exactly,
right? Okay.
Exactly. So all of a sudden, Steve Montrelli's got this new piston, and I made it a 4-ring piston. Instead of using a 3-ring piston, I used a 1 millimeter top and 1 millimeter second, which would be basically the same thing as what 1 ring that they were running. And now the engine sealed good, and it didn't have no more Black Death, and the guys were able to run their engines, 3 or 4 or 5 races without taking the cylinder heads off them, which saved them money, and they didn't have to buy as many pistons.
What cars did you actually build engines for, Steve?
Well, I built engines for a car named Eastern Raider on the East Coast. I built motors for Cheryl Greer, Dale Poley in the Mickey Thompson car when he got it back. I didn't actually build the motors. I mean, I supplied him parts. I helped with his tune-ups a few times. I mean, Dale's a very sharp mechanic and driver. There was quite a few other cars that we put pistons in, did cylinder heads for, helped with the tune-ups, Bays and Rupert, John Lombardo.
Well, you're
Jeff
mentioning some pretty
Cortez.
famous names here in drag racing. Now, I understand also in your shop you got involved with drag boats. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, started doing drag boats, and I was a car guy, and we had 4 or 5 different cars in the shop, as you know, because you were on one of the teams, and we had a couple dragsters in there and a couple of funny cars, and then I think we had, if I remember right, we had Gene Conway's dragster, which is the guy that I used to run with C&O Automotive, and he went to Alcohol Dragster, and your partner, Dale Smart, and maybe you weren't a partner, maybe you were a partner. Whatever.
Well, I think at that time I was a crew member.
Right. Well,
I wasn't much of a partner after that. I'd learned about partnerships.
We were all team guys that all worked together and tried to make things happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did get involved with the boats. What happened is we started this project when I was working for Mickey. I met Nick Arias and Joe Paisano over there at Venolia Pistons, and obviously Mickey had made his own pistons and rods, but he sold the company, so we started using Venolia Pistons, and that's how I got to know Nick Arias and Joe Paisano, and then we used to race against them on the weekends. Well, Nick used to come by when we were doing the Boss 429, and he saw the spacer plates. Some of the cars that we were in the shop, I was doing some research and development work for Nick Arias, that had a hemispherical Chevrolet head. We put it on a Chevrolet block, and everybody went, a Hemi Chevy, what is that? And anyways, we started playing around with it, and it was a 3 push-rod engine, which most people don't. Most engines are 2 push-rod.
Were you involved directly on the beginnings and design of that with him, or how did that come about?
Well, no, I wasn't, to be very honest with you. Like I say, I met Nick at when he was partners with Joe Paisano, Venolia Pistons, and I was with Mickey's Cars, and we were using his pistons, Joe and Nick's pistons, and later on, Nick, I guess, he got out of there and he opened his own shop in 1969, where he is today, and it's been there for 40 years now. Him and Ray Moodler.
You mean the partners?
Yeah, the gentleman that helped.
Rudy Moeller.
Rudy Moeller.
That was Rudy Moeller, yeah.
Tom Roberts. They were doing a lot of the pattern work and everything, and then like I say, I'm not exactly sure, but when I got involved with it, there was some steel heads that probably weighed 90 pounds each, and it took 2 people to put one on a motor.
I do remember those.
We still have some around. We've seen them, and they're keepers. Anyways, Nick had got me involved, and we started doing this 3 pushrod motor, and we went out to the drag races with as the team you were on, one of the cars, and we would go out every Wednesdays and Saturdays at Orange County, and everything would be real good on the engine stand. We'd start the car up at the shop. Everything would be just great. We'd go up to the racetrack, unload the car, take it up the starting line, and the driver would get out there and make a burnout, and all of a sudden the motor would quit, and we'd push it back, and we'd go back to pits, take the valve covers off, and we had a problem. There was no push rods in the motor.
Well, I recall some of that myself.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Right down to it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Well, having a 3 push rod motor was quite a unique experience, but you being in on the ground floor of that, you guys figured the problems out and worked them out, because I know it later we certainly started to get the car to run pretty good.
Well, I think we did that for about 4 or 5 times on Wednesdays and Saturdays, and then finally we kept looking at it, and I kept bluing everything on the bottom of the rocker arms and the push rods and everything, and finally we realized that it had an idler rocker, which would be a third rocker, which go for the 3rd push rod to make it work.
I think that was the bell crank, if I'm not mistaken. Sure.
Well, we call it an idler.
Yeah. Well, I call it whatever.
Yeah, whatever.
I had a new name for it.
It was a pain then.
We had a brand new name for it every time we ran it.
Exactly.
I know.
So, anyways, we found out that what happened when the engine was running, there wasn't enough clearance. Finally, we got enough clearance in that idler push rod. We put the thing together, went out there, and after that, we had no more trouble with that. Every once in a while, you'd burn a push rod, but they do that in all the engines today, even.